Thank you, everybody, for being on. This is a very special two-part series that we're doing. As everybody knows, we've been drawing from the Wheel 2.0, the Wheel of Cocreation, because we know that we're becoming a new species. And everybody on this call, Marc, is in some way experiencing themselves as awakening as the new species. So we have a context here for our wheel. And so I invited Marc to do a two-part series. And part number one, we're not going to do a code today. We're going to ask Marc to give us a complete run-through that he can in part one. And then we'll have at the very end a few questions, but not a lot, because I want you to get the whole thing. And this will be recorded, so that we'll all have what it is that we're looking at. And then next week, we will do part two of Wheel 2.0, which will give everybody on Awaken the New Species, as well as all of our friends and colleagues, a first time that this has ever been presented. And I just want to say, from my point of view, the key to awakening as the new species is really two things. One, the new story of evolution. I don't think you can believe that we're awakening as a new species without knowing that story. And secondly, we have to see, and this is the first time that I've ever seen it done, that we have a diagram in our hearts and consciousness as to how we're participating in the new story of evolution in all our different parts, including our small group work and our personal intentions, as well as turning on towards a planet awakening in love. And I want you to know, Marc, that we have said our goal collectively is a planetary awakening in love through a unique self symphony, which is a beautiful phrase that Marc has developed. I'm just going to take a moment now to welcome you, Marc. Thank you for taking the time to be with us. And this bio, which will be printed up for everyone, is actually awesome. But he holds his doctorate in philosophy from Oxford University and received rabbinic certification from the chief rabbinate in Israel, and so on. He has been a guest editor of the Journal of Integral Theory and Practice on issues of integral spirituality, and a faculty member of the JFK University. He is a co-founder, together with Ken Wilber, of the Center for Integral Wisdom, a leading activist think tank. As initiator in 2014 of Success 3.0 Summit is when I first met Marc, with John Mackey of Whole Foods and entrepreneur Kate Maloney, Gafni is known for his visionary work on evolving a post-dogmatic shared language of meaning and success rooted in the entrepreneurial values of wake up, grow up, and show up, and outrageous love. So he has brought love, which is the evolutionary love impulse, into this. The Success 3.0 Summit's method and movement is and continues to be to bring together key thought leaders and change agents to collaboratively evolve a bold new integral vision of success, which I think is so brilliant, because we had a lot of well-known entrepreneurs there who were so happy to say their real motivation of success is bringing care and love to people. But they didn't have a chance to say it, Marc, without you, and I won't even mention all the famous names who were there. Known for his combination of brilliant mind and overflowing heart, Gafni is a leading public intellectual, impacting the source code of global culture. He's developed educational programs, and he is the founder of the Center for Integral Wisdom. Now, I want to just add to that, Marc and I have become partners in the process of co-creation. And Marc is a co-president of the Foundation for Conscious Evolution with me. in order to bring my part of the work forward. And I'm a co-founder with Marc of the Center for Integral Wisdom, which was founded by John Mackey and Ken Wilber and Marc. And I came in later on with all these really 30 or 40 really extraordinary evolutionaries. So we have done what I've mentioned on the course many times, joining genius. I have discussed how that is necessary to conscious evolution. So, Marc, I would like to ask you to just take over now and give us as clearly as you can part one of the Wheel of Cocreation. It's not quite 2.0, it's like a 1.0 and a half. Let's go for it.
Totally.
Welcome.
Thank you, Barbara. What a delight to be with you. And as I'm sure you've, in the incredible work in the Awakening New Species course and the incredible work you've done throughout your life, right, in bringing forward the gorgeous vision of conscious evolution. So it's a delight to be evolutionary partnering with you, right, both in the foundation and in the center. And we've definitely logged hundreds and hundreds, probably thousands of hours in the last couple of years of deep work together, and what a delight to be here. So thank you, everyone, and I appreciate the kind invitation. So I'd like to throw up now Wheel 2.0, if we could. Awesome. And this actually is Wheel 2.0. There are two versions of Wheel 2.0. There's an advanced version of Wheel 2.0 and a beginning version. And everyone, as I'm sure Barbara has shared with you, this is a wheel that Barbara and I created together. And I actually wrote the basic notes on it on a napkin in a restaurant in Portland. And essentially, let me try and kind of map this out. And because we only have 2 sessions, I'm going to go the no frills version and try and really find what's happening here and why it matters. You know, why it matters. Why is it important? Now, let me kind of begin with just a frame, right, if I can. And Barbara, I'm gonna follow your instruction. I'm gonna kind of get a little timer here. I'm gonna follow your instruction and go till, for about an hour, till about 6:15.
Right.
Maybe end before, and try and kind of map this out. So let me just kind of start, with the, what does it say on top? Wheel 2.0 is a shared creation of Marc Gafni and Barbara Marx Hubbard and reflects core new memes from their forthcoming book. It is affectionately referred to as Barbara and Marc's Wheel. Well, that's good. On the corner there. Okay, so let's try and kind of frame what does Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 mean and where did it come from? So let me kind of begin with a sentence. We live in a world of outrageous pain, and the only response to outrageous pain, right, is outrageous love. And that, I would say, is the orienting framework, right? It's the sentence, it's the dharmic sentence that Wheel 2.0 is responding to. The crisis is outrageous pain. The response is outrageous love. And Robin is writing in the chat box, my screen is black. So I can't help with that, Robin. I apologize, but whatever can possibly be done for that is awesome. It might be your screen. I'm getting my Wheel 2.0 up here well. So blessings to you, Robin, on that. Yay. Yeah, I hope that works out. Okay, there you go. So.
Yeah, everyone needs the image of the wheel. Evidently, they do not have it, Jim. Can everyone have the image of the wheel is being asked?
Yeah. I know, but most people have it. Most people have it. I think it's probably Robin's.
Okay, all righty.
It's probably Robin's screen.
I'm looking at the chat box.
Awesome.
Okay. Yes, I have it, says somebody. I have it. Okay, thanks, Jim.
So that sentence, awesome. That sentence, right? We live in a world of outrageous pain. What does that mean? So what we mean by that is that after all of the explanations of suffering, after all of the great religions, that talk about suffering as, in some sense, a response to sin. And I'm just going to ask if everyone can turn off their volume. So then we work, because we're having a little feedback. If everyone just kind of, we do this, we use Zoom all, just turn off your volume. We'll be able to kind of not feedback, and then we'll turn it back on when we have questions, if that works for everyone. Awesome. So when we talk about outrageous pain, what we're saying is that we need a response to outrageous pain. And we can't just explain outrageous pain in the way that either the New Age world does or the great religions did. Right? The great religions, explain pain as a kind of suffering sin nexus. Right? You sinned, right? So therefore you suffer. Now, it's not because the great religions were bad. They were trying to actually retain some dimension of human dignity and control. Right? If you suffer outrageously, and it's actually gratuitous, it has nothing to do with anything you did, then you lose power. So if you can actually say, oh, no, I'm going to locate myself in the system. There's something that I did that created this suffering, right? Well, then there's at least a way to affect it. Now, of course, the New Age world does the exact same thing. You suffer because there's a law of attraction, right? You attracted it into your life in some way. You are the ultimate cause in the Buddhist version of that. Right, of everything that possibly happens. And so therefore, you're 100% responsible for everything that happens to you. And of course, that's not true. Right? There's actually many other factors in the world besides you. Of course, you should always take full responsibility for what you can take responsibility. Right? If there's a contribution system, and there's 100% in the contribution system, and you've got 5% responsibility of that 100%, take 100% responsibility, right, for your 5%, but not more. So we got to be careful, both the shadow of the great religions and the shadow of the great human potential New Age movement, both try and locate human power by essentially blaming human beings for the outrageous pain. Right? Either because we're saying you sinned so you suffer, or you attracted it into your life so you suffer. But if you notice closely, those two very different worlds, the human potential movement and the old great religions, are both making the same move. Does everyone get that? It's subtle, but it's very beautiful. We're saying no. We're saying actually we have to look straight into the face of outrageous pain. We live in a world of outrageous pain. And of course we take responsibility every place we can. But ultimately, we stand before the mystery of suffering. Because suffering, right, is a failure of intimacy. Evil is a failure of intimacy. It's a failure of love. And so the only response, if we live in a world of outrageous pain, the only response to outrageous pain is outrageous love. And outrageous love is not ordinary love. Outrageous love is what I like to call evolutionary love. I wrote with Ken Wilber a number of years ago, like a decade ago, an essay we called Evolutionary Love. And by evolutionary love, I mean not ordinary love, right? Meaning not the love that the human being feels, which becomes a strategy for status, for comfort, for security. And that's all fine. That's not outrageous love. That's not evolutionary love, right? Outrageous love, or what I call evolutionary love, right, is the love that Dante said moves the sun and other stars, right? It's the love that Tagore was referring to when he said, right, love's not mere human sentiment, but it's the heart of existence itself. So outrageous love, and it's gorgeous, right? Outrageous love, evolutionary love, is what drives all of reality. And the way I always describe it is just imagine electromagnetic attraction, right? At the very structure of reality itself, in the first nanoseconds of the Big Bang, subatomic particles, quarks, are attracted to each other. And that attraction is not ordinary love. It's not the ordinary love that lives in the human world, right? It's evolutionary love. It's outrageous love. And it's very gorgeous to kind of get that sense. Now, the Wheel of Cocreation is the map of evolutionary love. Does everyone get that? Right? The Wheel of Cocreation 2.0, right, that Barbara and I have created together as an expression of delight and joy and joined genius, right, is, I mean, it's so gorgeous, right, is the manifestation, the mapping of the trajectory of evolutionary love, of outrageous love. And so what we're here to do is to actually, and I'm seeing Jean saying, go a little slower with delight, Jean. You got it. A little slower it is. Okay. So this map of outrageous love, right? Let me slow down a little bit for Jean. Totally good. Perfect. Right. This map of outrageous love, this Wheel of Cocreation, this map of evolutionary love, this map of outrageous love. right, is the memory of our future. And one of the things that I say most often is that at the core, right, at the core, we have to be the memory of the future. And actually, as we'll see, right, both the memory in the past and the memory of the future we put on Wheel 2.0, and we'll get to that. But let's just start there. If you look at the outer rim, right, of the wheel, you'll see it says on top, memory of the past, and on the bottom, right, it says memory of the future. And let's just try and track this for a second. When we're in crisis, let's say we're in addiction, we're in some sort of depression, right? We're in some sort of breakdown. And, you know, the line between, or what we call normal and breakdown, is very thin. The veneer is very thin. R.D. Laing was a great therapist, wrote an incredibly, maybe the greatest therapist of the last 60, 70 years, wrote a book called The Divided Self, right? Created a treatment center in London called the Arbor House. And a close friend of mine, Joe Burke, actually took it over from him. He's kind of the leader in psychoanalysis on the topic of malice. And in the Arbor House, both the therapists and the clients lived right in the same small house. And Laing's point was, right, the line between, right, what we call pathology or breakdown or addiction, right, or crisis, and what we call normal is very thin. So when we're in crisis, when we're some sort of kind of massive pain and depression, right, what we do is, we're in addiction, for example, we actually try and reorder our past. We try and recover the memory of our past. We try and find the places we got hurt, the places we got traumatized, right, the places we got wounded. So we recover memory in order to stabilize the crisis and find our inner center. But actually, that's only the first step. What we're saying in Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is that actually, you can't actually truly stabilize. You can't actually recover your center. You can't actually recover your joy simply by recovering a memory of the past. You have to recover a memory of the future. And so Wheel 2.0 is both a memory of the past and a memory of the future. And we're recovering, does everyone get that? We're recovering not only a memory of the past, and it's a memory of the past. We actually forgot what happened in the past. We actually don't quite understand, right, what the evolutionary trajectory has been, right? It's actually not in our awareness. So we actually need to bring into our awareness, right, an evolutionary relationship to life, where we begin to understand ourselves as personally implicated in the evolutionary story. And at the same time, we want to recover a memory of the future. Where is it going? But not only do we want to recover a memory of the future, but we want to begin to become the memory of the future. So Barbara, my beloved evolutionary partner, who is beyond awesome, has, right, called this Homo universalis. I called it independently Homo amore, Homo amor. Right? And at some point, we're going to come together and we're writing a book called Homo Amore Universalis. And I actually wrote Barbara one night and said, let's put these names together, right? It was right before Evolutionary Church, and we called it Homo Amore Universalis. So I'm going to talk, though, today in terms of Homo Amore, right? Barbara talks in terms of Homo Universalis. And again, that's how parts come together to form a larger whole. Part Homo Universalis, part Homo Amore, come together as Homo Amor Universalis, and by the end of next week, we'll understand that synergy much more deeply, okay? So right now I'm just framing, we're just saying hello, right? And Jean, I hope, love, we're saying hello slowly enough and gently enough that we're able to track, okay? So are we a little better now? Let me just check in with Jean and see if I'm okay. Where are we, Jean?
Yeah, she says you're doing perfectly, she said.
Awesome, okay. So we've talked just about the first two elements in the wheel, right? We've talked about the memory of the past and recovering the memory of the past, and the understanding that hope is a memory of the future, and recovering the memory of the future as essential to incarnating Homo Amore, right? And then Homo Amore Universalis. So now, let's kind of begin in a kind of broader sense. We're going to walk through about half of the wheel, tonight and about half of the wheel next week. So we're going to split this, right? God should bless us and we should be awake, alive, and thrilled next week to be here together. And I'm going to try and do it carefully and slowly, and I will refer back to the wheel again and again. Okay? So let's begin. And I'm going to begin in the middle, because where else should a person begin but in the middle? So I'm going to begin at the second circle of the wheel, and all of this is new in Wheel 2.0, where it says intimate universe. Okay? And Barbara, I know, is focused on heart's desire and planetary DNA, which are two beautiful phrases. And I'm going to focus now on intimate universe and desire, those two structures. Okay? So gently, slowly. So I want to try and unfold in these, precious and beautiful minutes together, some of the principles of intimacy. What do we mean when we write here, intimate universe? And if you'll notice, right, throughout Wheel 2.0, there are constant references to intimacy. If you look right at the bottom, right, if I can get rid of that here, let me exit that there. There we go. If you look at the bottom, you'll see the phrase deeper configurations of intimacy. Don't worry about it now. Just wanted you to catch that phrase. If you look at the top left, you'll see I'm a unique configuration of intimacy desired by all of reality. Right? If you look under where it says impulse of evolution on the left, right, towards the end of the column, you'll see it says evolutionary intimacy, right? Right? The evolution of intimacy. So it's that dimension of the wheel that I'm going to now speak to and see how it comes together. And the wheel is, just to understand, the wheel is the symbol of our future. Now, that I believe that, we believe, right? Barbara and I believe together that no less than the cross was the symbol of a new vision, right? As they gathered in Bethlehem, right? No less than Da Vinci, right? And Michelangelo articulated the symbols of modernity when pre-modernity had crashed, right? In the Black Death of Europe. And Da Vinci understood that I can't go village by village and heal everyone. It's not going to work, right? We actually have to directly alleviate suffering through outrageous love, and the act of outrageous love, which is most effective, right? Because if we live in a world of outrageous love, then who are we? We're outrageous lovers. And what do outrageous lovers do? We tell a new story. What Da Vinci did is he told a new story. So what Barbara and I are doing here together is we're telling a new story, but what we're doing is we're bringing parts of the story that Barbara has so stunningly and gorgeously told for decades, and bring parts of the story that I've been privileged to tell for decades, right? Although Barbara has a couple more decades on me, right? But we're bringing these different parts of the story together. Now, what I want to kind of get to, I hope by the end of today, is that even that act of bringing parts of the story together, right, that joining genius, that bringing parts of the story together in a larger whole, is actually very significant. But let's go slow. So we live in an intimate universe. It's the third circle of the wheel. And in very, very inner center of the wheel, there's a black dot that we put on the wheel. And the black dot represents no thing, right? The black dot is, if you notice, the little line goes down and it says true self being. And being is the beingness of reality, the suchness of reality, what the Buddhists called the unmanifest, what the Kabbalists called ayin, A-Y-I-N, right? Which is the no thing. And if you notice at the beginning of the line that cuts through the spiral, that cuts through the wheel itself, it says at the very beginning, at the bottom left, it says no thing, right? And the line that comes out from the black dot in the middle, if you kind of run it down, run your eye down, it says true self-being. So true self-being and no thing are the same, right? No thingness. Infinity decided to manifest. Now that's shocking by itself. The unmanifest decided to manifest, right? Why? That's mystery. No thing decided to become thing. Why? Because, and when I say because Because it's a self-evident reality in deep meditation. Because infinity desired finitude. How do you know? Because here we are having this conversation, right? So let me just kind of get something that's very deep. When we say it's an intimate universe, we're actually saying not only is the manifest universe intimate, and we're going to talk about those laws of intimacy, but we're saying that the universe itself was born from intimacy. Well, let me try and say it differently, right? The first principle would be we live in an intimate universe. But the second principle would be the infinite is intimate. Does everyone get that? And we're used to thinking of the infinite as this kind of abstract, arid, other, empty, right? Well, no, that's actually not accurate. Infinity loves finitude. Infinity, as we'll see, and I'm going to get back to this word, desired finitude, right? And try, see, my beloved, right? Try kind of, yes, the all is infinite, but try not to reduce it to any other phrase, right? Try and just kind of stay with the phrases because they have their own resonance. And then we'll play and then we'll translate if that works for everybody, okay? So the infinite is intimate, right? Now that's a big idea. No thing experiences a stirring of desire. And what's the desire for? It's for intimacy. So infinity desires intimacy. Does everyone get that? I mean, it's stunning, right? Infinity desires intimacy. So there's a stirring of desire, right, in the infinite itself, and it's a desire for intimacy. The unmanifest wants to manifest. And all we've just explained is two little moments on the wheel. The black dot, which is no thing, which is before the Big Bang, right? In Wheel 1.0, it started with the Big Bang. We've added no thing because actually before the Big Bang, right, is no thing. So the all or the infinite, see, yes, right, desires intimacy. Right? The infinite itself has a quality of the intimate. And in our bodies, in our minds and our hearts, we actually tend to divide between the infinite and the intimate. There's the infinite, then there's the intimate. And we look at the intimate, and so many of my good friends who are Buddhist teachers, they say, well, the relative, or that's the manifest world, that's intimate. But the infinite? No, that's beyond any sense of intimacy. Well, no, that's actually duality. Actually, the deep realization that we get both in contemplation and in meditation, right, and in deep discursive, right, intellectual mysticism, is we actually realize that the infinite is intimate and the infinite desires intimacy. So that's what initiates the process. That initiates the process of the intimate universe. Now number three, okay? And let's go slow, gentle, and easy, okay? And I hope we're doing, Jeannie, a good pace here, okay? So number three. So now we're in the intimate universe, right? We live in an intimate universe, right? It's principle one. Principle two, the intimate universe is sourced in the stirring of desire in the infinite for the intimate. So the infinite itself is intimate. The infinite is actually desiring intimacy. Now let's go to three. And now we're going to get some booster rockets, and we're going to take off not in speed, but we're going to kind of deepen. It's kind of like when you're chanting. I chant a lot. It's one of my practices. Sometimes people, to deepen the chant, they go faster. But actually, it's not. We don't want to go faster. We just want to drop in together, because what we're doing now is not intellectual. We're not engaged in an intellectual process, although I'm unfolding mimetic structures in this kind of new, post-integral theory that we're articulating at the Center for Integral Wisdom, which we think is the best universe story available today. And we call it, right, we call it at the foundation and at the center, we call it the universe, a love story. Wow, right? The universe, a love story. That's what we're unfolding here. So let me now step into the third dimension, right? Level three, tenet, Right? These are tenets of intimacy. These are principles of the universe, a love story. And what the Wheel of Cocreation is the plot line of the universe, a love story. That's how Barbara and I together envision it, right? The plot line of the universe, a love story, is the Wheel of Cocreation 2.0. Okay, so let's go, to tenet of intimacy, principle 3. So principle 3 is a simple principle that Barbara and I talk about often in different ways. And the simple principle is reality is evolution. But it's a big principle, right? When a close friend of mine and a board member, a good friend of mine and Barbara's, who's was actually just asked to be headmaster of one of the leading educational institutions, right, in America, right? When she went to the department in her august institution, a liberal institution of education that taught evolution, and she tried to share some of these ideas that she studied with us for years, the evolution department said absolutely no. No, can't do that, right? Why? Because we view evolution, right, as a theory, right? As a theory, right? Is that helpful to everyone? Right? We have evolution, right, as a theory, and it's a theory of origins, but the way it's usually understood, this theory of origins has very little, right, to do with us. Does everyone get that? Right? Right? It's a theory, right? But actually, evolution's not a theory, right? Evolution is, right, it's the nature of reality itself, right? It's the structure of reality itself, all the way up and all the way down. And as we'll see, I am personally implicated in that story. It's not that I'm here and evolution is there, right? As Barbara and I say in Evolutionary Church almost every week, right, when we do actually kind of the creed of the church, we say, I am evolution, or I am evolutionary love. So it's an I am statement. It's not just I am evolution. So the third principle is, the third tenet of intimacy is reality is evolution. Not as a theory out there, but as the inner structure, right? The inner structure, the inner fabric of all of reality. That's 3. Now, what does that mean? Now, tenet 4, gentle, slow. And I understand we've got some awesome friends from Germany and from Israel here with us. That's awesome. And I know that it's a second language, and I can talk Hebrew. I can't talk German, nein, nicht, right? But I try and go, slowly and gently. And again, please, right, we're a loop together. If I'm going too fast, right, in any way, please give me feedback, right? I'll look in the chat box. I don't have the chat box open, but the feedback will come up. And if you missed a word or a phrase, let me know, okay? So we're super urgent tonight, but we're also tender. We're gentle together. We're tender, right, in the urgency, and we're ecstatic. So we have a sense of the ecstatic urgency, right, of this conversation. And it's ecstatically urgent because it's not an intellectual conversation. It's not a theoretical conversation. It's the response to outrageous pain, right? It's the map of outrageous love, which responds to outrageous pain, right? We are Da Vinci, right, who stood, right, at the brink of premodernity with all of its suffering and realized that as an outrageous lover, that's what Da Vinci was. He was an outrageous lover. And he realized that as an outrageous lover, he must tell a new story. That's what outrageous lovers do. And a new story, we're going to talk about what a new story is, but that's what we're doing here. We're now at the edge of postmodernity. And postmodernity has deconstructed all value frameworks. Postmodernity has deconstructed all narratives. Right? The only grand narrative in postmodernity is there are no grand narratives, which is a tragic mistake, aside from the fact that it itself is a grand narrative. Right? When you say there are no grand narratives, that's a big grand narrative. But leaving that aside, it's a tragic mistake. Right? There are not dogmatic grand narratives. That's true. We're beyond dogma. But actually, we are in what I like to call dharma. But I've borrowed that Sanskrit word. And by dharma, I don't mean what they meant in pre-modernity in Buddhism, but by dharma, I mean the best integration of the deepest insights of the pre-modern traditions, the modern traditions, and the postmodern traditions, integrated together into a larger whole greater than the sum of the parts, which begins to give us the direction of the new story. So nothing that I'm going to do here is a New Age proclamation, right? Barbara and I are both with total deep respect and love to the New Age. We have little interest in New Age proclamations. We don't want to make human potential declarations, right? Unless the declaration emerges from the deepest integrations of the exterior and interior sciences, right? Spanning across pre-modernity, modernity, and post-modernity, integrated into a larger whole, which is the Wheel of Cocreation 2.0. Voila, hello, right? That's exciting, okay? That's exciting, right? That's like, oh my God, that's a love poem, right? Right, so here we go. So we're now in, if you remember, we're in tenet 4, okay? In tenet 4, right, tenet 3 was reality is evolution. Evolution is not merely a theory, right? It's the very structure of reality itself all the way up and all the way down. Let's have a drink for a second. So here we go. Now we're at tenet 4. And tenet 4 is so beautiful. Tenet 4 says, well, what does it mean that reality is evolution? What does that mean? So tenet 4, which Barbara read a piece of as she shared with me, and I was so delighted, of what we call our evolutionary creed. And part of tenet 4 appears in the evolutionary love creed. So here's tenet 4. This is tenet 4 in the tenets of intimacy, which are implicit in Wheel of Cocreation 2.0. So tenet 4 is, when we say reality's evolution, what we mean is reality is not merely a fact, reality is a story. It's not an ordinary story, it's a love story. It's not an ordinary love story, it's an outrageous love story, it's an evolutionary love story. Oh my God, that's exciting, okay? That's tenet 4. That's what reality is evolution means. It's not a fact, it's a story. When Einstein was sitting in Berlin for our German friends, right, in 1914, and the candle was dripping its wax as the light receded, and he's writing furiously that night, right, by candlelight, trying to work out, right, the equation of the theory of relativity. He has this shocking, right, this shocking revelation that actually frightens him. And he adds a constant called the cosmological constant to his equation to avoid the implications of what his equation told him, which was that the cosmos is expanding, evolving. So when we say reality is a story, again, that's not a light thing to say. Oh, isn't that nice? I was at a nice course and they said reality is a story. Isn't that sweet? Right? Have a drink. L'chaim. Na salud. Right? No, my friends. Right? No, my dear, beloved, new friends. I'm so delighted and honored to be with you. Reality is a story is huge. It's huge. It means reality is not merely eternity. And it means that my goal, it means the goal of my life is not only to meditate and get underneath reality or underneath the manifest and access the eternal pole, which was the goal of classical meditation and all the axial religions. No, it means reality is a story. It's not just true self-being that initiates and lives underneath reality, but actually there's becoming. Being is spacious and beyond, and it's you know, if you give any ascription to it, it's got this blissful sense. But actually, the story is a story of becoming. It's dynamic, right? It's pulsing. It's ecstatic. It's urgent. Its quality is ecstatic urgency. So we actually realize, okay. Reality is not just a fact. That's what we mean. That's what tenet 3 means. When we say reality is evolution, we're saying something beyond imagination, right? We're like, oh my God. We're like, right? It's like, it shocked Einstein. He literally inserted a new constant to change the equation. And it wasn't until a couple of people caught it and pointed out to him that he must have played with the equation until Hubble, of Hubble telescope fame, wrote him and said, actually, the information he was getting indicated the original equation without the constant, And Einstein says at the end of his life that the one disgrace of his scientific life was adding that cosmological constant. I want everyone to get this is shocking. This is not minor. Oh, okay, it's a story. This is not a kind of homiletic statement. It's not a sermonic invocation. It's not a new age, right? It's not a declaration. This is a quality of reality. Reality is not merely a fact. It's not merely eternity. It's a story. Right? It's not an ordinary story. Right? It's a love story. We're going to talk about what that means. But it's not an ordinary love story. It's not a Harlequin romance, but a Harlequin romance is an expression. It's one pulse of this deeper love, what I call evolutionary love, right? Evolutionary love or outrageous love. Barbara and I like together the term evolutionary love. It's a beautiful term, right? And it's the love that is the heart of existence itself. It's before human beings. Now, human beings can access evolutionary love, right? Human beings access outrageous love, right? Some of the mystics called ordinary love, love after creation, and evolutionary love or outrageous love, love before creation, right? And it's a different quality. And I'll just give you a sense of it for a second, right? Barbara, I think you have one more. You have 5 kids, right?
Yes.
I have 4. You're ahead of me by 1. And I'm not intending on catching up in this lifetime. Next incarnation. So when you hold a baby, right? We've both held babies, right? When you hold a baby with ordinary love and the baby's crying, the baby keeps crying. But when you access the quality in yourself of evolutionary love, the love that moves the sun and other stars, the baby just melts into you, right? So that's this quality. It's not an ordinary love story. It's an outrageous love story. It's an evolutionary love story. So that's 4. Now, if we could have a drum roll in the house, everybody, just so we can get to 5. Here, I'll give you a drum roll. We need a drum roll for 5. Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Okay, Christine, you ready? Okay, here we go. So if it's a story, it has a plot line, because stories have storylines. Does that make sense, everyone? If it's a story, it's got a plot line. It's got a storyline. Okay, drum rolling. Thank you, Elizabeth. Okay, here we go. Right? So we've got a plot line. We've got a storyline. So that's 5. 5 is, if it's a story, it has a trajectory. It has a plot line. And knowing the trajectories of the evolutionary story is unbelievably important. Okay? Now, stay with me for a second, and let's all maybe have a salute, a l'chaim together. Okay, l'chaim, l'chaim, salute, salute. Okay, ready, everybody? I think our drum roll still applies, so we can go. So when we say it has a plot line, what's the plot line? And here's number 6. And this is tenet 6, and it's a very big deal. You see, we're used to talking about the plot line of the story as, the movement from simplicity to complexity. I was talking, I remember in Tuscany several years ago, Barbara, to your beloved friend and my colleague, Irvin Laszlo, who's wonderful. And I said to him, so what's the plot line of evolution? He said, of course, simplicity to complexity. And I just want to ask you a question for a second, everybody. You're having a depressing day, and then you want to kind of cheer yourself up about something, essential and wonderful. And you say to yourself, well, thank God the world's moving towards more complexity. That does not cheer you up. We're trying to simplify, my friends, right? Really? I mean, do you get the problem? But it's not just a problem, right, from an existential perspective. It's not just that it's not inspiring or motivating. It's actually a very partial understanding of reality, right? And we need actually, right, it's true but partial, and ignorance is a partial relationship to reality that claims to be a whole. Does everyone get that? I want to get that, right? In other words, we can't take a part and make it into a whole. Of course, evolutionary theorists, right, are correct in saying, right, that evolution is moving from simplicity to complexity. Of course that's right. But what is complexity? What is it, right? It's like a word. And sometimes what words do is they illuminate, and other times words obfuscate. It's very beautiful for the Israelis, right? One of the Hebrew words for letter, a letter, which is a letter in a word, is teva. And teva also means in Hebrew a box, right? Because what a letter or a word does is it can illuminate, but it also can box you in, right? You're boxed in, but you can't actually see anymore, right? So actually, what is complexity? Well, complexity is more and more filaments of interconnectivity, right? Does that make sense so for everyone? Of course. More and more complexity means more and more interconnectivity. But stay with me. Even interconnectivities, for example, Fritz Capra wrote a great book, right, in 1996. It was not the Tao of Physics, which is a more complex and has more mistakes in it, but he wrote another book in 1996 about essentially complexity theory, which was fantastic. And by the way, he corrected his mistakes in Tao of Physics in his next two books. But Fritz Capra's best work was in 2014, a basic work that no one read, which he wrote with a wonderful Frenchman whose name I will not embarrass myself and attempt to pronounce right now. And it's called The System's View of Life. And it's an excellent book. And he talks about reality as the system of interconnectivity. And of course, he's right. And I remember I was in Italy with a very close beloved of mine several years ago. And she wanted to see all the good things in Italy, and I just wanted to read the book. So I sat in the bathroom, I sat in restaurants, I sat in cabins, I was just reading the book the whole time. And this person said, I am never traveling with you ever again. Right? So that's just bad travel companion. Okay? So just stay with this for a second. Okay, let's go. Brent, we're going to get there. We'll go slow, brother. Okay? We'll go slow, step at a time. So let's just feel it. So we're in number 6. So complexity is interconnectivity. But even interconnectivity does not get us there, because interconnectivity can be interconnected its, I-T-S, interconnected its. And interconnected its, oh my God, interconnected its, right? Let's laugh together, my friends, right? Interconnected its, right? Are you serious? That's the whole story, interconnected its, really? And now we get it. Now it's about to burst open to us. So here's the big sentence. This is number 6. The interior of interconnectivity is intimacy, right? Interconnectivity is an exterior. It's an exterior description. It's kind of like saying love, right, is the release of dopamine and a whole other, cocktail of neurohormones. And we actually reduce love, right, to certain new movements across synapses by particular sets of neurochemicals, and we say, that's love. Really? No, right? That we don't die for that. We don't sacrifice our lives for that. We don't pledge our loyalty to neurochemicals jumping synapses. Right? That's an exterior, right? That's an exterior. And reality, huge sentence, my friends. This is part of principle tenet 6. Reality is interior and exterior. Interiors and exteriors all the way up and all the way down, right? Reality is interiors and exteriors all the way up and all the way down. And so the interior of interconnectivity, which Capra writes beautifully about interconnectivity in a system's view of life, but where Capra stopped short, and it's not that he doesn't, I think he knows it, but he wants to stay within a certain kind of mainstream conventional science, right, acceptability, the same way that Thomas Berry, or even more dramatically his student, Brian Swim, never actually makes the leap. He stays within mainstream evolutionary theory, right? He's poetic about it. He's a great poet of evolution, but he doesn't actually reify the poetry. And he doesn't go from phenomenology to ontology, right? Meaning ontology means it's the nature of reality. This is not hocus pocus. This is not poetry. This is not the poetry of reality. My friends, dear, beloved, holy, gorgeous friends, this is the prose of reality. That's why it's important, right? And it's and the deepest structure of reality, prose and poetry meet. So tenet 6 is the interior, it's interiors and exteriors all the way up and all the way down. And the interior of interconnectivity is intimacy. Okay. Let's take a break for a second. Break's over. Let's have a drum roll. Drum roll. Okay, we in on the drum roll? Do we have any help in the drum roll, anybody? I hope so. Okay. Drum rolling, just let me know in the chat if we got any drum rolls happening here, because we can't unfold the new story without drum rolls. Everybody knows that. Okay. Now we're at 8. Yay. Here we go. Here we go. So now we're at 8. Okay, this is exciting. And then this is what Barbara and I have logged, thousands of hours in this conversation. And all of this is implicit right, in Wheel 2.0, and that's what we mean when we talk about the intimate universe. The intimate universe is not a casual phrase we put there, right, on the third rung of the wheel. The intimate universe has an entire dharma, right? And when we talk about intimacy 5 times in the words on the wheel, there's a reason it's the word mentioned more often than any other word there. Because these principles of intimacy are critical. So now let's get to number 8. So now number 8 is, it's so beautiful. So reality is evolution, right? Evolution is a story. The story has a plot line. So now the plot line is number 8. What's the plot line? And it's so gorgeous, it just takes your breath away. Right? The plot line of evolution is the evolution of intimacy. Oh my God. Evolution is the progressive deepening of intimacies. Oh my God. Right, everybody? Evolution is the progressive deepening of intimacies. Evolution itself is the evolution of intimacy. And if you think I'm excited about that, I am. Okay? Because my friends, this is the good news, right? We've kind of abandoned, right, excitement to pre-modern evangelists who are preaching about an ethnocentric, homophobic God, right? That if you don't believe a particular structure, that's not that exciting. This is exciting, right? This is exciting. So let's get excited, right? It's ecstatic urgency, right? And it's so urgent. And at this moment, right? At this moment, as we're placed between dystopia and utopia, we're at this inflection point in reality, right? And Barbara, you wrote so beautifully at the beginning of the 2012 book, right? Citing, right, Irvin Laszlo, there's a small fluctuation point, right? A minor fluctuation point, right? In islands of coherence that jump the entire system. And my friends, this is the minor fluctuation point, right? The island of coherence is a new story, right? Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is, right, the island of coherence. Does everyone get that? Right? The Wheel of Cocreation 2.0 is the minor fluctuation point, which is the island of coherence, which jumps the entire story. Right? Oh my goddess. So actually what we're saying in Tenet 8, right, in Principle 8 is that the plot line of the evolutionary story is the evolution of intimacy. Now, for integrity's sake, it's actually one of 5 plot lines, right? And in my book, Return to Eros, I outlined the other 4 plot lines, and Barbara and I are going to be putting out a series of 3 books together, outlining all of this together, right? We've been working very, very hard on this. Barbara was just in Portland, where we actually scrawled down together over lunch, barely eating our salad, all of the memes of Wheel 2.0, right? And so it's very exciting, though. So we kind of get that, right? Number 7 was, right, that it's interiors and exteriors. I'm responding to the question in the chat box. It's interiors and exteriors all the way up and all the way down, okay? Interiors and exteriors all the way up and all the way down. And therefore, the interior interconnectivity is an exterior, right? But the interior of interconnectivity is intimacy, okay? Yay. Awesome, okay? So wow. Okay, so wow. Okay, so number 8, the plot line, or one of 5, but it's the core plot line, excuse me, that includes all the others, right, of, right, the evolutionary story is the evolution of intimacy. Now, of course, complexity is not wrong. It's not that it's not moving from simplicity to complexity. Of course it is. But complexity is but an obfuscating term that actually blocks out the interior, right? And just feel it in your body. Wow, I live in a world of increasing complexity. Great. Wow, the plot line of the world is increasing complexity. Well, this is really hopeful here, friends. Okay, we're doing good. Yeah, I didn't like calculus. I don't think I'll like this either, right? But I love calculus. But the plot line of the world, right, is ever increasing the progressive deepening of intimacies. Now, my friends, now it's getting exciting. And I want to just tell you something, and I promise you that this is not hyperbole. We're just getting started. I mean, this is so gorgeous. And we're just getting started. It's why we needed 2 weeks. So now we're at number 9. Okay, and at number 9, clearly we need a l'chaim and a salud. Now we're at number 9. Salud. Helen, that's S-A-L, I think it's U-D-E. It's a salute, right? But we can salute also, right? Amen. Amen. Okay, so to Helen, salute. Salute it is. L'chaim, cheers to life. And let's be intoxicated right, with the new evolutionary story, okay, as I drink my tea. So here we go. So we're now at number 9. We're at tenet of intimacy number 9. So let's just feel into this for a second, okay? And now we begin to understand, right, where it says on the left side of the wheel, left-hand side of the wheel, all the way over to the left, if you go to that column where it says evolution of intimacy, those 3 words, and the intimate universe on the 3rd rung of the wheel, that's what we're explaining. So this is the wheel. We're in the wheel right now. That's what we're explaining. That's that word evolution of intimacy. Now everyone get it. It's not a declaration, right? It's not an assertion. It's not poetry, right? It's actually the structure of reality itself. Now let's get to 9, okay? Let's get to 9. So what drives evolution? We said evolution is driven towards ever-increasing intimacy. But one second. But what drives evolution towards ever-increasing intimacy? What's the drive? What makes it move? So what drives it, Christiane, is not quite desire, not quite love, right? It's what I would call desire. Now, of course, desire, Christiane, is part of love, right? You could call it love desire or desire love, right? There's like love intelligence and love desire and love beauty. So you could call it love desire, but you got to get the quality of desire, right? In other words, reality desires more intimacy, right? You get that? That's different, right? The word desire and the word love are not isomorphic, right? They're not ontologically orthogonal to each other, but they're not isomorphic, meaning they're not utterly distinct. They're interincluded. Does everyone get that? They're interincluded in a terministic screen, in a field of meaning. Does everyone get that? But they're not isomorphic, right? Desire and love are not the same words. They're not reducible to each other. And we got to be careful and see, right? I see my beloved friend C is here, who was with us in the accelerator. One of the things we really try and be really rigorous on in order to land this new story is not to reduce words to each other and not to reduce concepts to each other. Let them stand, right? So actually number 9 is that what drives the story is desire. There's a desire for more and more intimacy. That's huge. That's huge. Now, if I would try and take intimacy and desire, and I'm in 9 now, okay? So there's, right, what drives reality is a desire for more intimacy, right? And actually, one of the things that you see in the great traditions, right, all of which were not speaking to each other. Remember, the great traditions, when I talk about the great traditions, I'm talking about from the axial religions on until the Renaissance, like the great traditions. So Judaism, Buddhism, Confucianism, Christianity, Islam, etc. And deep in the hidden structures of the great traditions, for example, in Hinduism, right, in its original form, which is called Kashmir Shaivism, right, there's this understanding that in what they call the highest tattvas, right, and there's about 31, 32 tattvas, and it's a very important system that it's not my system to teach. I know it in a kind of general way, right? My kind of, I try not to teach something that I can't read the original text. So I'm very good in Aramaic and not so good in Sanskrit at all. I don't do Sanskrit. So I've read a lot about Kashmir Shaivism, but you can't really touch a system unless you're in its original language. So I was raised on the milk of the Aramaic mystery traditions. But in both of these traditions, you have this notion of a stirring of desire in the infinite, which I talked about in the beginning. Isn't that a beautiful phrase? There's a stirring of desire in the infinite. There's a yearning in the infinite. And one of the things that Barbara and I talk a lot about is that when you feel that yearning arising in you, which Barbara, right, describes, and it's one of the terms that Barbara downloaded into Wheel 2.0, heart's desire, right? That's the stirring of desire in the infinite, right? And in the heart of the infinite is desire, right? So when we say heart's desire, we don't actually mean, and I'm going to talk about desire for a second. If you look at the first rung of the wheel, it says desire and heart's desire, and we're at number 10 now. Everyone see that? We're at number 10. So when we say what drives reality towards more intimacy, we get to that first rung of the wheel where it says desire and heart's desire. Now, the reason we were very careful, we talked about it for maybe a couple hours, Barbara and I, and we decided let's put in both desire and heart's desire. And I'll tell you why. Because if you just write heart's desire, you might think it's this human anthropocentric thing. Oh, your heart's desire, isn't that nice? Right? Oh, I'm at my seminar, I got my heart's, no. Your heart's desire is an incarnation of the quality of desire that drives the intimate universe. We begin to get Will 2.0, which is why in the first rung, after no thing, right, which is the black dot, the true self being, the beingness, the no thing of reality, right, you have desire. And why is desire there? Because at the heart of the infinite is desire. Wow. Now, friends, I just want you to understand, that's a shocking thing to say. That's a very big deal. So, for example, Maimonides, for those of you Israelis who like the Rambam, or, for example, St. Thomas of Aquinas, right, they all didn't get this. They insisted that divinity has no desires, that the infinite has no desire. But the mystics, right, in the incorrect traditions, who were actually contemplating reality more deeply, they went deeper than Aristotle, right? The mystics of Kabbalah, the mystics of Kashmir Shaivism, right? The mystics of more of the third wheel of Buddhism, the Vajrayana wheel, right? The mystics actually understood, right? They intuited evolution, right? They didn't get evolution in the biosphere, of course, but they intuited evolution. And actually, as I wrote a several-page, too-long footnote where I pointed out the Kabbalistic sources for Schelling and Fichte, who actually were the formal progenitors of evolutionary spirituality. But Fichte and Schelling are actually drawing from Renaissance Kabbalah, which goes from the Hebrew version into Christian Kabbalah, right, to Fichte and Schelling, who launched evolutionary spirituality. Does everyone get that? If you didn't get that, press delete. Okay? That was a little much there, okay? If you didn't get that, press delete, okay? But the idea is that evolutionary spirituality, right, that whole notion that we talk about, it is really an expression of this mystical intuition that actually, based on very profound contemplation, right, using not the eye of the mind and the eye of the senses, but using the eye of the heart and the eye of the spirit, which are two discursive methods that are real and valid and that reveal gnosis and have their own validity tests, actually we're able to discern what Aristotle couldn't quite get, nor Maimonides and Aquinas, who were in Aristotle's wake, right, who talked about there being no desire in the infinite, right? They were able to get these other theorists, right, through their practice and through the eye of the heart and the eye of the spirit, this deep intuition of the infinite, which is intimate, and of the stirring of desire in the infinite. That's huge. So in number 10, and the reason I mention this again, because I want everyone to get this is not declaration. We're not declaring this, right? We're not making this up, right? This is very profound. I mean, it's gorgeously grounded, right, in the deepest intuitions drawn together and woven into this map of outrageous love, right? This plot line of the universal love story. So we're in number 10. Everybody with me? Okay, so we're in number 10. So number 10 is that it's desire that actually drives us to more intimacy, which is why desire is the first rung on the wheel, which then leads to the second rung of the wheel, which is the intimate universe. How gorgeous is that, my friends, right? And you access, right, the planetary DNA, which is the other side, the top rung of the second rung, where the bottom of the second rung is intimate universe, and the top of the second rung is planetary DNA. The reason it's the planetary DNA is because these tenets of intimacy that we're talking about that govern the structure of reality and live inside of us. Because ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, and that means a lot, but bracket that sentence for now, and I mean that in a cosmic way. Bracket that sentence. But for now, let's just say that every one of these principles lives in us. When we say I am evolution, it means the intimate universe lives in me. But again, that's not a claim. We're not there yet. We're going to focus on that next week. Next week, we're going to talk about how all of this lives in us. For now, I want to just lay out the core principles, and I want to not jump, right? Because I want to really honor and respect everyone so deeply that we go so gently stage by stage. Is that okay, everyone? Okay, so awesome. So number 10 is that desire, right, drives the process. right? Desire drives, right, reality to seek ever greater intimacies. Now, if I would try and find a word, okay, then now we're at 11. We're at 11, okay? Right, we're at 11, right? And again, this is all, I'm speaking without any notes, but the reason I'm speaking not without any notes is not because I'm smart, but it's because this is self-evident. One follows from the next, right? Once you're on the inside, it all just flows out, right? You don't need to look at anything. We're in the inner structure of reality together. So we're now at 11. So at 11, let's try and find a word which actually holds in it evolutionary love, intimacy, and desire. I want to find a word which is a word that actually, each of those words, evolutionary love, outrageous love, right, intimacy, desire, are subsets of that larger word. And the word I want to introduce is eros. Now, again, I just had the privilege of, I wrote a book about, 20 years ago called The Mystery of Love, which was about eros. And I did a new book now called Return to Eros that Barbara wrote the most gorgeous, forward to. And Barbara wrote the forward to my book. I just got the afterword to her book, to Evolutionary Testament, but that's okay. I got the afterword. But we're doing a great book together, which is now, right, 3 of them actually, which now articulate everything we're talking about here. So principle 11, we're going to introduce this new word, eros. Okay? Now, eros, and then stay with me on this. What does eros mean? And this next sentence took me about a decade, so stay with me, okay? It's a very simple sentence, but it's a very big deal, okay? So eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking ever deeper contact and ever greater wholes. Let me say it again. Eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking ever deeper contact and ever greater wholes. Does everyone get that? So let's stay with this for a second, okay? Very beautiful. But if you notice, like we always do, there's something hidden in that. Let me say it again. Eros is the experience of radical aliveness, seeking ever deeper contact. Well, what does that mean, seeking ever deeper contact? So we use the word seeking. I used the word seeking when I formulated this definition, right, in Return to Eros. I used the word seeking because I was avoiding the term desire. What does it mean, seeking ever deeper contact? It means desiring ever deeper contact. And what does contact mean? Contact means intimacy, right? There's a desire for ever deeper contact, right? And ever larger wholes. So what I wanted, that's 11. That's eros. Eros is the desire. It's the experience for radical aliveness, right, that desires ever deeper contact and ever larger wholes. Now, I want everyone just to get something for a second with your permission. We're not talking, in the Wheel of Cocreation, we don't talk about sexuality. But I want you to get, right, just when we're mentioning this now, what we've done. We've done something very tragic. We've exiled eros into the sexual. Does everyone get that? That's, for example, the word desire. When we think of desire, we think about the sexual. But actually, right, that's an exile of the erotic into the sexual. When we think about desire, what we do is we first off, we exile desire from being a core quality of the universe and actually a stirring in the infinite, and we exile number 1 to the human realm. That's exile number 1. Then exile number 2, within the human realm, we exile desire to sexuality. And then 3, we exile, the word E-X-I-L-E. I apologize, exile, not exhale, exile, X-I-L-E, galut. We exile, right? We exile, right? We exile desire from the quality of the infinite. We exile into the human realm. In the human realm, we exile into sexuality. And in sexuality, we exile it into a particular kind of desire for a particular kind of sexuality. That's a triple exile of desire. We need to reclaim desire, right? Desire is a quality that stirs in the infinite, and eros is the experience of radical aliveness, desiring seeking ever deeper contact, which means desiring ever deeper intimacy and ever larger wholes. WHOLES, wholes. Now, I'll get back to that phrase in a second, ever larger wholes. Okay? I now want to go to 12. 12. And I want to try and get in the next, and I know I have exactly 4 minutes, so I'm probably not going to get, so I'm going to stop at exactly 6:15, right? And to keep our holy contract here, but I want to try and get, if I can, maybe 2 more. Okay? So we're now at 12. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Okay, I'm going to try not to, and Jeannie, I'm listening to you. I'm going to try and go slowly and carefully. Let me just try and do one more in the 2 minutes we have left. What is intimacy? Because we've talked about intimacy, so we're now at number 12. Okay? And so let's finish with 12. There's about 30 tenets, right? Although the number changes every time I do it, but there's about 30. But we can stop at 12. We're going to do part 2 next week, and we're going to cover as much as the wheel as we can. But as everyone just gets, I want to try and get the depth of the wheel. The wheel is gorgeous, right? And every single word written on the wheel is going to emerge from what we're talking about here. Right? This is the ground of the wheel. This is the map of outrageous love. So I want to just get to 12, okay? What is intimacy? So first off, if anybody tells me intimacy is into me you see, I'm going to shoot them. Simply, okay, I'm going to die. Okay? And again, it's a very sweet thing to say, right? But again, that's what I mean. Intimacy is a very profound thing. Right? Into me you see is one small dimension of one, right? Intimacy is, so there's a core understanding. What is intimacy at its very core? Intimacy at its very core is, right? Stay with me carefully. Intimacy is, right? And we got to be precise with words, right? Words are magic, right? Abracadabra. And one of the things that happens in the New Age world, in the human potential world, and the evolutionary world, right? Even in the integral world, right? Ken being an exception because he's very precise, right? Is we're sloppy with words. And in Aramaic, we say abracadabra. Abracadabra means I create with my word. We got to be very precise with words. So intimacy is, this is going to be our first definition, which we're going to up-level as we go. But our first definition is intimacy is shared identity. That's what intimacy is. And intimacy is shared identity. And we're going to have 3 up levels, excuse me. But our first up level I'm going to give you right now, which is intimacy is shared identity in the context of otherness. Okay? Intimacy is shared identity in the context of otherness. What does that mean? Let's just try and track this for a second. So let's introduce, for example, our friend Alfred North Whitehead, right? He's the great philosopher of science. So Whitehead talks about, what I referred to earlier as all the way up and all the way down. So it's intimacy, it's desire for intimacy, all the way up and all the way down. So Whitehead talks about this word that no one understands. He calls it prehension. I don't know what he was on that day when he called it prehension, but he did. But Whitehead, right, talks about there being a prehension in subatomic particles. But what he's really talking about, when he talks about prehension, what he means is a desire, a kind of proto-touch desire, right? A desire to touch, a desire to make contact, which inheres in the deepest interiority of even subatomic particles. That's a very big deal. Let's just take a look at how that works. So there's this interior prehension, this proto-feeling, this proto-touch. Isn't that gorgeous, everyone? Right? It's like, oh my God, right? There's a desire to touch, right? And the desire to touch, we're not talking about when we actually don't live in a world of genuine intimacy, then we get me too, which is failed intimacy, which is a disaster, right? We got to go from me too to we too, right? And actually realize we live in an intimate universe, right? When we exile intimacy to very narrow realms, then of course it breaks down. So we need to actually get in a very deep way is there's this proto desire for contact, for touch, which inheres in reality. And that desire is for intimacy, and intimacy means shared identity in the context of otherness. So for example, right, when quarks come together, and they form quarks, muons, leptons, right, hadrons, right, we now made some strings, however you're telling the story, right, we form subatomic particles. So there's a new identity, right? It's called a proton or a neutron or an electron. And then protons and neutrons and electrons, subatomic particles, they come together as an atom. But what's an atom? An atom is a new intimacy. It's a new configuration of parts that form a new whole. Does everyone get that? Stay with us. We got like 60 more seconds. But this is wildly important. We'll start from here next week. We're going to start from here next week, right? When the parts come together, right, the protons, the electrons, the neutrons, they form a shared identity. That's intimacy. They have shared identity in the context of otherness. Why is it in the context of otherness? Because they don't lose their integrity as protons, electrons, and neutrons, right? And when atoms come together and they form a molecule, so they have shared identity in a molecule, but it's shared identity in the context of otherness because they don't collapse their integrity, right, you with me, as atoms. So that structure goes all the way up to human relationship. Mm-hmm. It's beautiful, right? Right? It's shared. Barbara and I have shared identity, evolutionary intimacy in the context of otherness. Barbara Marx Hubbardness doesn't disappear, God forbid. Marc Gafni doesn't disappear. It gets amplified. That's what happens when you join genius, right? So that's number 12. The definition of intimacy is shared identity in the context of otherness. So let's hold here. We got through 12. That's all. We did a lot. Yeah. We did a lot, and we're at the beginning of the story, and all of this everyone gets. Let me just say one last sentence. Look on the wheel where it says on the left side, right, all the way down, it says impulse of evolution, and underneath the impulse it says evolutionary eros. So eros, that's what we described, right, in Principle 11. So everything we're talking about here is on the wheel directly itself. This is not some general conversation. We're actually unpacking the map of outrageous love, which is the plot line of the universal love story. So thank you for listening, and I turn to beloved Barbara.
Well, this is, Marc, thank you so very much. The idea that we're becoming a new species and that we have created here in this particular first course a context for what you're saying, because I would like to say that the new species will need to know this.
Yes.
And I am so delighted to have you here in this context. We've had other contexts, but I just like to say that this is the right context, which is humanity is giving birth to a new human and a new species, and the wheel of co-creation is our map. And that is awesome to hold those two things together. And this particular course, by having you on it, although we worked it's a whole year, 52 weeks because of 52 codes, and is actually setting a context for what I think our work together must be.
Yeah, amen.
There is no doubt to me that we are becoming a new species, that we're at a point of devolution or evolution. This course is precisely aware of that. But without this, and we have started with the map, but we have not taken it on until you came on. But what did happen, which I think is very interesting, this so-called invention of what is your heart's desire and what is your genius code, this small group formation, that the heart's desire is tapping into universal desire. These small groups, some people have said to me, Marc, in the small groups, I have never been known like this before. I believe now, I think, because I said, well, I don't understand how these particular small groups, where nobody was really working very deeply on them, should care so much. What happened? It's the context. And the people who came into it from this context. So if anybody has a very key question, you put it on the chat for Marc while I'm talking here, because I don't know if you've been able to see Marc, but people are totally interested and inspired.
Yeah.
and that this is, I mean, one thing after the next, and I would like you to be able to read over these chats.
Yay.
So not that you need to, but I'd like you to know how we feel about it.
Yay, thank you so
And
much.
we've also talked about joining genius and the capacity of people who are becoming a new species. I just like to have blessings and kind blessings on you, Mark. I mean, this is the connection that we have been waiting for, says Kathy. I feel that we have this. This is what we have missed. I love it. I'm in tears, says Nahid, deeply touched. That's a new way, the desire of the infinite. Folks, by having you on this, Mark, with all the work that we've done in preparation for this and having you next week, we will discover together how we can invite the new species worldwide.
Yay. That's awesome.
And this new species is in every culture, in every religion, but they are new. And they don't have a map, they don't have a theory, they don't have anything like this. And I'm so turned on now, I don't know what to do. Says he says, this is from Christine. Mark, thank you from the bottom of my outrageous heart for your holy crystal clarity. I'm remembering how ecstatic this joining of genius will be for us all. So happy. Bless you and Barbara. Collective evolution as a new species. This is so important. Lisa says, thank you for such a brilliant, deep exploration of the wheel. You know, I think this wheel actually is a map. And we know, I mean, I'm trying to think of those early, when people didn't know that the earth was round and they thought they'd fall off the edge of it. And then somebody noticed that they could keep on going. And the discovery that the world was round made a huge difference. So there's some more. So Helen says, you have truly, deeply, wholly liberated desire and intimacy in us, Mark.
That's awesome.
Helen says, you have, thank you for giving voice to our interior yearning for ever greater wholeness. Thank you, Mark and Barbara. The wheel is a map. I agree. We need our maps. This is as important. I mean, this is going hyperbole, but that discovering that the earth was round was really important for humanity, that we weren't going to fall off the edge of the wheel. Is it possible that the Wheel of Cocreation is a map? Says Judy, we have a map now, and I'm learning how to read this map. A map for the evolving universe, says Freed. Yes, someone has noticed there's a plot line equal to our desire. Oh.
Yeah, I would love Barbara, and she would help. I would love to. I really will read afterwards all of the comments, so I apologize if I missed people's comments, but Sherwood just told me that I'll be able to read them all afterwards, which is fantastic. And I want to just ask one small thing, is that I know that, of course, people in the course will get the recording. I'd like to ask people not yet to forward it to friends, right? To actually, we're actually trying to deeply incubate this for the next few weeks, and we will actually put out and this is our promise, mine and Barbara's, we'll put out a short mini book of these 2 weeks together, right, which we'll make available to everyone. But until then, let's keep it in our conversation, and we'll incubate it together so it can kind of deepen. Is that okay, Barbara?
It makes a lot of sense. Oh, absolutely.
That would be awesome. And if anyone has any questions that I can answer in the short time, I'd be delighted to.
The reason I was reading it, Mark, is it gives me joy.
No, of course, love.
How people feel, and I am intoxicated, says, I mean, it's really, I think, does anyone have a question for this awesome man? They're just intoxicated. They're thank you. Yes, we can hold this as precious and sacred in our Homo amore. Fred says, this is certainly as important as the world is round. The world is infinite desire. Fried says, oh, agreed of this gorgeous foresight for the booklet. Yeah. Well, we have enthusiasm here. Enthusiasm.
Yay, what an honor.
Yeah, so I just, Mark, I want to thank you. And I want to thank you for the journey that you're on now and that we're on together.
I really want to, Barbara, if you'll allow me to just one last word, I really want to thank you because it's been such an honor and a delight and a pleasure to, you and I have been on a great journey in these last several years. And, we've had occasion to talk so many times and, exchanged, volumes of libraries of emails and, really to see in you, your deep integrity, your deep wisdom, right? Your deep, steady course, right? The beauty of what you've unfolded, and to be able to join genius with you in this way is just a complete delight and honor. And I want to I'm so delighted to be here with you, and I couldn't honor you enough. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Mark. I think I'll just read this one more thing from Fred. My heart is liberated. It is an honor to be with you. I'm going to cry. What a beautiful decision to come together. There is so much obstacles. Hail to you both. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, we're finished tonight. Thank you, Mark. You know what? The earth was round, and that was a good discovery. We have a map of the story of evolution, and now we're going to live the map.
Amen.
That's what we're doing. Thank you, everybody. Love you all. And thank you, Mark.
Thank you so much, Barbara.
Wonderful, wonderful. Take care of your voice now. Wonderful evening. Okay, thank you all. Bye-bye.